This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
It is on? Okay, Bruchim Abam, welcome everyone. Parshas Vayeira. So, we know that Sefer Bereshis is certainly a narrative. It's a storyline, and it has to be understood as such. Everything that takes place transpired, and are the stories of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But nevertheless, certainly everything that transpires in the Chumash, aside from being narrative, has to coincide and has to concur with the halacha. But more than the fact that it has to concur with the halacha, if you're sensitive to the nuances of the story and the details of every detail that happens, very often you could learn out halachos of how something transpires and how it unfolds. Now, an individual who had a particular specialty in this approach to the Chumash was the Rogotchover, where he will take what seemingly is a storyline, is a narrative, and he'll explain how this is not just random information that the Torah is telling us. This is not just a more colorful picture or a more full, detailed account of what occurred, but actually the Torah is transcribing it very specifically to be able to learn minutia of halach from every single prat. Okay, just to give you a little background about the Rogotchover, if you don't mind passing me a Chumash, the Rogotchover was born in 1858. He lived 78 years until 1936. So I had the privilege to be close with the Talmud Chacham back when I was in Kollel. There was a Talmud Chacham in Queens, Reb Shlomo Warman, who was actually Rosh Hashiva out here in Hank. And he was a Talmud Muvak of Reb Lezer Silver, who was a Talmud of the Rogotchover. So he used to tell me about the Rogotchover. He said, well, the Rogotchover lived in the city of Dvinsk. I think I said this over many times. The city of Dvinsk was so small that if you took a wagon through Dvinsk and you started with Ashrei, by the time you got to Soymech Hashem L'chol HaNoiflim, you're ready in the next city. Now, the Rogotchover was not born in Dvinsk. The Rogotchover was born in Rogotchov. And he came from somewhat of a Hasidic family. It's important to know Rogotchover had very strong inclinations to Hasidus. One of his Rabbeim, we're going to see, he sort of encompassed Kol HaTorah Kula. At the age of 8, the Rogotchover knew the entirety of Seder Nezikin. At the age of 9, he was already a world-famous Eloi. And then by his bar mitzvah, there was nobody capable of teaching him anymore. He was like beyond any Rabbeim. And they sent him to Slutsk. At the time, the Rav in Slutsk was the Beis HaLevi. And the Beis HaLevi, meanwhile, was teaching his own son, Reb Chaim. So it was the Rogotchover and Reb Chaim sitting in the Shiur of the Beis HaLevi. You know, that must have been quite a Shiur, you know. Yeah, the Rogotchover and Reb Chaim on your two sides. Then after that, he went to Shkolov, where he learned from Yeshua Leib Diskin. And then after that, he learned from one of the descendants of the Baal HaTanya. And when the opening in Dvinsk opened, when the position opened to become the Rav of the Hasidic community in Dvinsk, the Rogotchover became the Rav of the Hasidim in Dvinsk, and Rav Meir Simcha, the Meshech Chachma, was the Rav of the Ashkenaz community in Dvinsk. And these two Gedolei Olam, who basically were in a dot on the map, they made that dot, one of the most famous Jewish cities in the world. Some of the famous things about the Rogotchover, actually one of the greatest Talmidim, or considered one of the primary disciples of the Rogotchover, you have today in Tarvadas, one of the Rosh Hashivas today, Tarvadas just appointed a new third Rosh Hashiva to take over for Rav Belsky, but Rav Savitsky, who's one of the Rosh Hashivas in Tarvadas today, his father was a Rav in Boston. His name was Rav Mordechai Savitsky. He was one of the biggest Bekiyim in the Yerushalmi, in the 50s and 60s, and he has many svarim on the Yerushalmi. He was like one of the primary disciples of the Rogotchover. There's a Sefer Ner Avram from the Rogotchover to Rabbi Savitsky, correspondence between the two. And I say this because the Rogotchover did not suffer fools well. Some Gedolim, you have this innocent guy who comes and he asks, excuse the expression, he asks a klotz kasha. And the Gadol, he makes believe, he thinks about it, he says, it's a very good question, let me think about it. It's a ridiculous, absurd question. He makes the guy feel good, he's tolerant, he's patient. And a lot of great people, they don't suffer fools. It's not their fault. That's just not how they're cut. Like on their level, it's It's a disgrace for the Torah. You're asking that question. It's embarrassing. Many Gedolim, they don't suffer fools well. Anyway, if the Rogotchover didn't suffer fools, okay? If you had and not only fools, there were Gedolei Yisrael. He just, again, this is not serious learning. But so if he would speak to you, it was considered a great haskama. If the Rogotchover actually had a conversation with you, that means he considered you to be able to have intelligent conversation. Actually, one of the things Rogotchover was known was that he would learn the entire day of Tisha B'Av, which we know you know how to do. Not only that, when his father's yahrzeit was Tisha B'Av, so he would go back to Rogotchover from Dvinsk on Tisha B'Av, and on his father's yahrzeit, he would learn the whole day. Not only that, when his first wife passed away and he was sitting Shiva, he was talking and learning the whole Shiva, which also is not permitted. Right? So nobody had the code. Who's going to have the guts to tell the Rogotchover, you're now to learn. Now, there are a lot of stories about this, and there are a lot of false things that people say over that he said. People say over, let me go to Gehenna learning Torah, which is not true. A person could go to Gehenna learning Torah if you don't learn at the right time. The same way you have to learn at the right time, you're now to learn at the wrong time. But this is what he said. This is what he did say. There is a Yushalmi that if somebody is lahot achar Torah, lahot achar Torah, if you have this insatiable drive for Torah, you can't control yourself, so to speak. You have such a desire for learning, halavai, we probably don't even know anybody like that, but the Rogotchover would say, he is like that, and therefore he is allowed to learn during these times. So when the Rogotchover would make the trip from Dvinsk to Rogotchover, he would chazer half of Shas Baal Peh. And they said, "No, when are you going to do the other half?" So you say, "On the way home." Okay, on the way home. So they would say the Rogotchover has an incredible memory. He doesn't forget anything. And so Meir Simcha of Dvin said the Rogotchover doesn't have a memory. He doesn't even have a good memory. Having a good memory is, I learned something a few years ago and I remember it. But if you learned something like 3 minutes ago and you remember it, doesn't mean you have a good memory. So Rogotchover was constantly reviewing in his mind, Kol HaTorah Kula. Not like, some people, they learn Shas once a year. I know people who learn Shas. I think Rav Victor Miller used to learn 7 blot a day, and he used to learn Shas once a year. You have great people. I think Rav Asher Weiss said he doesn't let a Shabbos go by without learning 20 blot Gemara Rashi Tosfos. So if you learn 20 blot Gemara Rashi Tosfos every Shabbos, so you're going to finish Shas, I guess, once every couple months. But I don't think anybody here knows somebody who finishes Shas once a month or once a week. The Rogotchover was there's no way to describe it. Okay, so be it as it may, the Rogotchover has an incredible approach to the destruction of the city of Sodom, and let's begin with the following. Let's begin at the beginning of the Parsha. Vayeira elav Hashem be'eloinei mamre. The Rebbe Shalom appears to Abraham in eloinei mamre. Vehu yoshev, and Abraham was sitting. And Rashi points out that the word yoshev is misspelled. It should be spelled Yud, Vav, Shin, Vez. Yoshev, present tense. But the Vav is missing. So Rashi says the word Yoshev could be read Yashav. Without the vocalizations, if you don't have an akudas in the Sefer Torah, it could be read Yashav. Says Rashi, Avram Avinu, when the Rebbe Shalom came to him, he wanted to stand. But the Rebbe Shalom said, sit, sit, sit. And you sitting and I standing will serve as a paradigm and a pre-enactment that when the Jewish Dayanim preside over a case, the Dayanim are sitting and God is, so to speak, standing. This is what it means in the pasuk, Elokim nitzav ba'adas kel, that God stands in the courtroom. So says the Rebbe Shalom to Avram, I know you want, Avram said, I want to get up. So it says Yoshev, but it could be read, he sat, he wanted to get up, and God said, sit, sit, and that will be the model and the paradigm of the Jewish courts where all the Dayanim sit and the Rebbe Shalom stands. So the question is an obvious question, and Rav Shlomo HaKohen of Vilna raises the question, number 10, in Shalos Tshuvas Binyan Shlomo. He asks, why would Avram sitting, wanting to stand to greet the Ribono Shel Olam, be the paradigm of the image of a Jewish court? Avram wasn't in court. Avram was in he was in his pajamas, excuse the expression. He just had his bris milah. He was recovering. He was resting up. He just had major surgery. He's 99 years old, and he's sitting at the entrance of the tent. He's trying to, and the Rebbeinu Shalom comes to be mevaker chayla, and so Avram naturally wants to stand up, and the Rebbeinu Shalom says, sit, and this is the paradigm of what a Jewish court will look like. Why is that image of Avram recovering from the third day of his milah, trying to stand up for the Rebbeinu Shalom, the paradigm of the image of a Jewish court? Okay. There's something very ironic in the Parsha. It's not such a question, it's a little bit strange. Hashem decides, he's thinking, first of all, we have a phenomenon we don't have anywhere in Tanakh. Hashem says, should I tell Avram what I'm going to do, Sodom? Like, you never find such a thing where the Rebbeinu Shalom is like vacillating whether he should tell a Navi something or not. Either Hashem speaks to the Navi, or he doesn't speak to the Navi. Hashem says, oh, Yechezkel, Kol Yamar Hashem, or Hashem doesn't speak to the Navi. But that Hashem should be like, here the Torah is, so to speak, giving us a glimpse into Hashem's thought process. Should I tell Avram? Should I not tell Avram? Avram is going to be a great nation, so Hashem makes the decision that he's going to tell Avraham that I'm going to destroy Sodom. So Hashem has made up his mind that he's going to destroy Sodom, and he presents it to Avram, and Avram fights. Maybe they're 50 tzaddik, and maybe they're 40 tzaddik, and maybe they're 30 tzaddik, and maybe they're 20, maybe they're 10, and so on and so forth. And then, Avram's not getting anywhere, so the Rebbeinu Shalom walks away, Avram walks away, and the Rebbeinu Shalom goes to destroy Sodom. So it's a little ironic. It sounded like before Hashem spoke to Abraham, he hadn't yet made up his mind to destroy Sodom. And now, through the conversation that Hashem had to Avram, where Avram's begging and pleading to save Sodom, now Hashem decides to destroy Sodom. It's like before anybody ever said a good word about Sodom, Hashem wasn't sure what to do with them. And now that Abraham, defends them, then, you're defending them? Now I'm going to kill them. It's almost like Abraham killed Sodom. Beforehand, Hashem shouldn't have spoken to Abraham. Beforehand, nobody had a good word to say. Nothing happened to them yet. And after Abraham sits and defends them, all of a sudden the Rebbeinu Shalom decides to destroy the city of Sodom. Okay. Here's a very big pella on the Parsha. If you look in your Chumash, it's kedai to have a Chumash, or you could just listen. In Parak Yud Ches Pasuk Chaf. If I were to ask you, how many cities were there in Sodom? 5. The city of Sodom, well, actually Sodom was only one city, but that area, the Kikar, the plain, had 5 cities. Really? Who told you that? Oh, I saw in Rashi, because Rashi says when Avraham davened for 50 tzaddikim, Rashi says, what's the cheshbon of 50 tzaddikim? 10 for each city. So clearly we're dealing with 5 cities. And yet, how many cities are mentioned in Parshas Vayeira? 2. Parak Yud Ches, Pasuk Chaf, Vayomer Hashem, Zakas Sodom va'Amoira. The outcry of Sodom and Amorah. The outcry of Sodom and Amorah. What about the other cities? No other cities are mentioned. And then later on, Parak Yud Tes, Pasuk Chaf Daled, the Pasuk says, V'Hashem himtir al Sodom v'al Amorah gafris va'esh me'es Hashem min hashamayim. Okay, what about the other cities? No other cities are mentioned. Only Sodom and Gomorrah. I remember when I was a kid, we had a game. It's a trivia game. So I used to like the Bible questions. So I remember there are like 1,000 questions, but if you play the game enough times, you memorize all the answers, right? The only thing is you have to spell the answer correctly. You can know the answer, you don't spell it correct. So I remember memorizing how to spell Sodom and Gomorrah. Gomorrah is Gomoro, like HH or something like that. Sodom and Gomorrah. But what about the other cities? Nothing's mentioned in Parshas Vayeira. So who says there were other cities? Rashi. Where does Rashi get it from? Parshas Nitzavim. Gafris v'melach sreifa kol artza lo yisizarav lo yisatzmiach lo yaleh ba kol esev kemapechas. Nu we have a bakare. Sodom v'Amorah, Adma, Utzvayim. 4 cities. Kemapechas, Sodom v'Amorah, Adma, Utzvayim. So in this week's Parsha we have 2. Parshas Nitzavim we have 4, but the truth is there's the 5th is mentioned in the Parsha. What? Tzayar. Right? So Loit goes to Tzayar. Haloi Mitzarhi. It's small. Haloi Mitzarhi. It's small. Now that's also a question. Loit says, I'm going to go to Tzayar because it's small. Okay, what does the size of the city got to do with anything? So Rashi says it's small, meaning it was settled a year after Sodom and Amorah, so it has less Aveiros. So since it has less Aveiros, therefore it has a longer, longer shelf life. Right? Well, what's pshat in America? Why is America successful? Because people have been living in all the other continents for thousands of years, and they've added sin after sin after sin after sin, and the basically made them irrelevant. America is much more recently settled and discovered. It's not, how many years is it really populated? 100, 200 years?
What about the Indians?
What?
What about the Indians?
The native Indians? The Navajo? I don't know. I don't think did they actually occupy the entire country? All right, I'm getting a little sidetracked, but it's a valid point. Okay. But 200 years ago, how many people lived in the United States of America? Not a lot. Okay, so even if you had Indians, and even if they did sin, you didn't have, millions of people. The other continents were inhabited, fully inhabited. That's the answer, okay? So, either way, so Rashi says Tzayar was more recently settled, but that's not what Avram really says. Avram says it's small. So what? It's small. Who cares if it's small? If they're wicked, they're wicked. But the big question is, why in this week's Parsha do we only talk about Sodom and Amorah? And in Parshas Nitzavim we talk about Kemapecha, Sodom and Amorah, Admo Tzvayim. Admo and Tzvayim is all of a sudden mentioned in Parshas Nitzavim. We don't really mention Admo Tzvayim in Parshas Vayeira, but it is implicit in the Psukim that aside from the fact that Sodom and Amorah were destroyed, if you look in Parak Yotes, Pasuk Chav Daled, when it comes to Sodom and Amorah, Vashem Himtir al Sodom and Amorah Gofras Va'ish, they were destroyed by fire. And then in the next pasuk, Vayahafoich es ha'orim ha'el, God overturned all the cities. So it seems like, and this is indicated in Parshas Nitzavim, Kemapecha Sodom va'Amorah ad Mitzvayim, all the cities were flipped over like a hot pancake. But in terms of being burnt down, only Sodom and Amorah were burnt down. So what's going on exactly? 2 cities were burnt down. All the cities were overturned. Why would certain cities have different outcomes than others? Okay, these are some of the things that we need to investigate. Check out Parak Yotes, Pasuk Aleph. Vayavoyu shnei hamalachim Sodom. So the 2 angels come to Sodom, ba'erev in the evening. V'loit yoshev b'shar Sodom. And where is Lot living? He's living in the gate of Sodom. Like, who cares? I need to know his address. I mean, I'm not sending him a message. I'm not mailing him a letter. I need to know where. Who cares? He lives in the gate. He lives in the middle of the city. It's irrelevant information. Why does the Torah tell me that Lot lived in the gate of Sodom? In the ancient cities, the walls were very thick and there were homes built in the wall. Why does the Torah mention that Lot lived in the wall? Can I have a social security number, a credit card, a birthday? It's all irrelevant information. So actually there's a Rashi on that, but I'm not going with Rashi's pshat. Rashi says that also it's written Yashav. That day he was appointed a judge, and that's why it says B'shar Sodom. I'm going with the simple reading of the pasuk, that it's telling you where he dwelled, he lived, and it's giving you his address, which seems like irrelevant information. Okay. Now, not only the Torah does give us the address of Lot, the Torah seems to give us a weather report of what time of the day the city of Sodom was destroyed. Because if you take a look in number 18 on your sheet. Parak Yotes, Pasuk Chav Gimel, Hashemesh Yatsa ala Aretz, the sun came out, V'loid bat Sayara. In other words, the Torah is saying that at what time was the city destroyed? Neitz HaChama. Also, shkoyach for the weather report. I need to know it was Neitz HaChama. Why do I need to know that it was Neitz HaChama? Of what relevance is it that is Neitz HaChama? And which Neitz? The Magen Avram's Neitz? The Groz Neitz? Who cares? And a few psukim before, Parak Yotes, Pasuk Tesvav, Uchamai HaShachar Allah. It was Alois HaShachar. Okay, yeah. Well, is it the 72-minute sheet? Is it the Eliyah Rabbah's Alois HaShachar? Is it the Pri Megadim's Alois HaShachar? The 90-minute? Why is the Torah mentioning all this? So, says the Rogotchover, there is no episode in the Chumash that does not confirm to the T with all the Se'ifim and Shulchan Aruch. And if the Rebbeinu Shalom is burning down the city of Sodom, there is only one Vayeira that a city warrants to be burnt down to the ground, and that is if a city is an Ir Hanidachas. Ir Hanidachas, I try to look up what's the exact English term for Ir Hanidachas. What? Yeah, Wayward City. That's what they call it. I don't know why it's called a Wayward City. Nidachas doesn't really mean wayward. Ben Sairo Moira is the wayward kid. Nidachas means they've been led astray to serve Avodah Zarah. Now, what percent of the city needs to have served Avodah Zarah for it to be Ir Nidachas? Most of the city. What about 50-50? I don't know. That's a sugya in Shas. A mechza. It's a sugya in Chulin. It's a sugya in Psachim. It's a sugya in Machshirin. It's a sugya in Negoim. We never know, whenever there's a din that you need roiv, we never know what's the halacha mechza. It's sugya throughout Bavli and Yushalmi. Okay. But one thing we know, in order for a city to be Anidachas, the majority of the city has to serve Avodah Zarah, and if the majority of the city serves Avodah Zarah, we burn down the whole city, those who served, and their children and their wives, whether they served or they didn't serve. And not only them, their money, their homes, their possessions, we burn the whole city down to a crisp. Why the money? Because the money is really what brought everyone there in the first place, so it's like the money is also responsible. However, what if a minority of the city served Avodah Zarah? Then everybody's treated as an individual, and each server of Avodah Zarah gets skila, and everybody else is off the hook. And we don't burn down the rest of the city. Fine. So apparently, if Rebbeinu Shalom is burning down Sodom and Amora, they must have the din of an Ir Nidachas, where the majority of the city is serving Avodah Zarah. Now you'll ask, what Avodah Zarah? The Torah doesn't say that they served Avodah Zarah, but there's a concept that if you legislate law against the Torah, if you do an Aveira, it's bad. You do a bad in Aveira, it's very bad. But it's not Avodah Zarah. But if you make a law, you legislate law against the Torah law, that's considered Avodah Zarah. So they legislated all types of laws against the Zayin Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. Okay. Now the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that in order to determine if a city is a Ir Hanidachas, you need Bezdin Hagadol. What's Bezdin Hagadol? Not 3, not 23. You need 71. So the Torah says in Parak Yud Ches, Pasuk Chaf Aleph, the Torah says, Erdana, says Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm going to go down and I'm going to see, in Parak Yud Ches, I'm going to go down and see whether, in fact, the city of Sodom, Parak Yud Ches Pasuk Chaf Aleph, deserves to be destroyed. Erdana, because the Bezdin Hagadol has to have definitive first-hand information. And we know, whenever it says Vashem, the words Vashem, what does Rashi say on Vashem? Vashem, Hashemu Besdinoi, God and His court. Therefore, when it talks about the destruction in Parak Yud Tes, Pasuk Chav Daled, when it talks about the destruction of Sodom, it says Vashem Himtir al Sodom. Vashem, why Vashem? Because since Sodom is a Ir Hanidachas, if the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to destroy the city, you need the Kayach of Bezdin Hagadol, which is Rebbeinu Shalom Bezdinai. But here's the jam that the Rebbeinu Shalom is in. Because if God is going to follow the dictates of the Torah, and God is going to preside over this decision like a Bezdin Hagadol, then in order to do so, you need a real case. Now what's the halacha? If all 71 members of the Bezdin Hagadol say, guilty, 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 kulam oimrim chayav zakai. If every member of the court says that the city is guilty, you're potter. It's the Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Yud Zayin, look at number 8, Amar of Kahana. Sanhedrin shara'u kulan l'chayva poitrin oisai. If the whole Sanhedrin says that someone is chayiv, they're potter. So Rebbeinu Shalom's in a jam. How could he paskin on the Ir Hanidachas and destroy Sodom, but all the malachim say, kill him, kill him, kill him? So Rebbeinu Shalom says, wait a second. Let's ask Avraham his opinion. Let's make him one of the Dayanim. So Rebbeinu Shalom comes to Avram. And Avram, the last thing Avram wants to do is do this, but he has no choice. He has to tell the truth. So Avram says, I don't know. Maybe there's a limud chus. Maybe they're 50 tzaddikim. Maybe they're 40 tzaddikim. Maybe they're 30 tzaddikim. Maybe they're 20 tzaddikim. Maybe they're 10 tzaddikim. So we have one dayan who's malamed chus. Now we could destroy the city. Hashem says, that's all I needed to hear. So in fact, Avraham's conversation with the Rebbeinu Shalom was the makeh bepatish to destroy the city of Sodom. Had it not been for, if Avraham would have said kill him, the Rebbeinu Shalom would have saved him. Now that Avraham said save him, the Rebbeinu Shalom was able to destroy the city of Sodom. So it comes out that when the Rebbeinu Shalom comes to Abraham, we think it looks like Abraham sitting, recovering from surgery, but at that moment in time, Abraham had just been appointed one of the Dayanim of the Beis Din HaGadol. Says Rebbeinu Shalom, sit, and this will be the paradigm for the image of a Jewish court. So we asked, what do you mean, what does Avraham Avinu have to do with the Jewish court? He has everything to do. He's one of the Dayanim on the decision of what to do with the city of Sodom. So we've just answered, just to let you know what we're doing, we've answered the question of the Shas Utshuvas Binyan Shloimei with the concept of the Rogotchover, that Avraham Avinu is actually one of the Dayanim on the court of what to do with the city of Sodom. Okay, so let's start the Shiur. We've already said most of it, but we're going to go back to the beginning for a few moments. Check out number 1. Says the Rambam, an incredible Rambam. The Rambam says, V'heich din irani dachas. What's the law of the irani dachas? Bizman shetehei ru'uya le'asois. Irani Dachas, when a city is fit to become an Irani Dachas, Beis Din HaGadol, Sholchin, the Beis Din HaGadol sends messengers, V'darshin, and they expound, V'chogin, they investigate, Ad sheyedu b'raya brura, shehudcha kol ha'iroi ruba, until they know clearly that either the whole city or the majority of the city has been led astray. Fine. Achar kach, then, Sholchin lohen shnei talmidei chachamim. We send 2 Torah scholars. Lehazhir oisan, to warn the city, ulachziran, and to bring them back to do tshuva. Im chazru v'asu tshuva mutav. If the people of the city do tshuva, gavaldik. V'im amdu b'ivaltam, and if they remain with their folly, Beis Din mitzuvim l'chol Yisrael lales aleim. Beis Din commands all of Jewish people to set siege against the city, to go to war against the city, to have a civil war, and wipe out the entire city. So listen to the Rambam. The Rambam says, after Beis Din has determined that a city is an Irani Dachas, what do? We send 2 Torah sages, 2 speakers to the city. We'll send 2 rabbis to the city. We say, give them a fiery Musar drasha. Maybe they'll do tshuva. And if they do tshuva, they're not a Irani Dachas anymore. Which sounds like one of the most outlandish things in Kol HaTorah Kula. I'll have to ask you a question. Tshuva is a great thing. Imagine we warn a guy, don't desecrate the Shabbos. Right? We have 2 Eidim. If you desecrate the Shabbos, you can be chayiv skila. So the guy is sitting there with his watermelon. He can't help himself. He has to remove the pits from the watermelon. He just has like this urge to remove the pits. We said, don't take out the black pits. It's Vayeira. If you take out the black pits, it's Vayeira. You can be chayiv skila. He does it anyway. So we're carrying him out to be stoned. So the guy says, wait a second. Ana Hashem chatasi avisi pashati l'fanecha. Now you can't touch me. I did tshuva. I mean, anytime Beis Din is about to administer any punishment, could somebody do tshuva? Yeah, but we're still going to punish you, because tshuva does not change your fate in the courts downstairs in this world. We don't care if people do tshuva down here. Tshuva is between a person and God, not for the Beis Din down here. So what in the world is the Rambam talking about? That after we've determined that a city is Irani Dachas, we send 2 Talmidei Chachamim to tell them to do tshuva? Okay, good, let them do tshuva. But that's going to change their fate? There is no analogous halacha in Kol HaTorah Kula that we give somebody the opportunity to do tshuva and then he's off the hook. So the Ravid asks, on the spot, Toiv hadavar shetar lehem tshuva. Fine, it's very nice that tshuva helps. Nowhere in Kol HaTorah Kula do we ever find that a person's din changes if they do tshuva. On Rosh Hashanah, in our personal fate between us and the Rebbeinu Shalom, we could do tshuva and the Rebbeinu Shalom will change our outcome from the year. But if the Beis Din paskins that a person has to get a punishment, tshuva doesn't do anything. So what's the Rambam talking about? Says the Ravid, I'm going to teach you a word. I wasn't sure if this really was the right usage of the word. The Ravid scoured through Bavli, Yushalmi, Sifra, Sifri, Mechilta, and he could not find one source in Kol HaTorah Kula that we tell the people, the Irani Dachas, to do tshuva, and if they do tshuva, it helps. Comes the Rogotchover, and he says, Ravid, you forgot to check one source. You know what you forgot to check? Targum Unklis on Parshas Vayeira. The Makar of the Rambam is in Targum Unklis in this week's Parsha. Targum Unklis? I am not aware of any halacha that we learn out from Targum Unklis. except for this. Says the Targum, Parak Yud Ches, Pasuk Chaf Aleph. The Pasuk says, Erdana, Vayeira, Haketza Kasa, Haba Elai, Asu Kala, Ve'imloi Eda. The Rebbeinu Shem says, I'm going to go down and I'm going to see if, in accordance with the outcry that came to me, they did, I will destroy them. Otherwise, I'll decide what to do with them. So it sounds like from the Pasuk, the Rebbeinu Shem is saying, I'm going to deliberate and check what the matzav is. Maybe, they'll get off the hook. Well, says Targum, Iskali Cha'an, I'll go check it out and go down, Ve'edun, and judge, Hachi kiviltoin da'alas l'kadamai avadu, if in fact they did what's said about them, then Ebed imhoin gemira, I will destroy them. Ve'im toivin, but if they do tshuva, la ispera, I don't punish them. Hafla v'fela. The Targum says that if the city of Sodom does tshuva, the Rebbeinu Hashem is not going to punish them. What do you mean? They're already confirmed as nir anidachas. How could tshuva help? They already served avodah zarah. Says a Rogotchover from Targum, Onkelos on the Parsha, the Rambam derives a halacha that even though in Kol HaTorah Kula, once Bezdin decides on a punishment, it's never rescinded. From the Targum, the Rambam learns a halacha that we give the nir anidachas the opportunity to do tshuva. Where'd the Rambam get that we send two Talmidei Chachamim to tell them to do tshuva? Says the Rogotchover, the two Malachei Ashores, who the Rebbeinu Hashem sent to the city of Sodom, they are akin to the two Talmidei Chachamim that we send to Ir Anidachas to give them the opportunity to do tshuva. Incredible that according to the way we're setting it up, the Rambam learns out halacha lemaisa from Targum and from Midrashim in the story that the two malachim were sent. And according to Ram, why were they sent? Well, it must be if the Targum says we give them the opportunity to do tshuva, then that means we have to explain to them how to do tshuva, that they should do tshuva. And apparently, according to the Rambam, the two malachim were there to tell them to do tshuva. That's what the Rogotchover writes. If you take a look at number 11 on the bottom line, V'zeh hava beis malachim, geder beis talmidei chachamim. By the way, the Tzafnas Paneach on the Rambam, you see there are a few versions of the Rogotchover. There was a Talmid Chacham by the name of Rabbi Menachem Kasher, who collected a lot of the concise comments of the Tzafnas Paneach, and he put it ala Torah. It's called Tzafnas Paneach ala Torah. Menachem Kasher was a goyin atzum. He wrote something called Torah Shlema, like 50 volumes, putting all the Torah Sheba'al Peh on the Chumash. Okay, so this is really an incredible way of looking at it. So now let me ask you a question. The Mabul? Was that Ir Anidachas? Was Noach a Talmid Chacham and warning them and...
Ninveh was the Ir Anidachas.
Well, the Mabul was Mayim. So how that fits in, we would have to study the Mabul separately and try to understand what's the halachic understanding of what transpired in times of the Mabul. Was Ninveh considered Ir Anidachas? I don't know. They stole. Does it say they served avodah zarah? I'm not sure that's one of their crimes. But the fact that it was rescinded seems to indicate... Now, says the Rogotchover like this. When the Rambam says that we give you the opportunity to do tshuva, Avada and Avada, the ones who worshipped avodah zarah, if they did tshuva, we're going to stone them to death. Once you're a confirmed Ir Anidachas, then whether we burn down the city or we stone you, tshuva is not going to remove the oynish on the perpetrator. What tshuva is going to do is as follows. If you don't do tshuva and the majority of the city served avodah zarah, then we're going to confirm the whole city as Ir Anidachas. We'll burn down the whole city, whether you worshipped or you didn't worship. We're going to burn down all the money. But if they do tshuva, then we judge the city as individuals, and we're not going to burn down the city. We're just going to punish the specific perpetrators, even those who did tshuva, because they served avodah zarah. You ever wonder, why did Avram Avinu start with 50 tzaddikim? So this is a little unclear, but this is how the Rogotchover explains it. How many people are needed for a city to be Ir Anidachas? So it's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. It's like how many residents have to be there have to be in the city for it to be Ir Anidachas? Sanhedrin Beis Machlokes whether you need 10 to 100. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yoshia, number 13 on your sheet. Rabbi Yonasan says 100. 100. You need 100. We paskin like Rabbi Yonasan. So how many people Lamaisa are needed for an Ir Nidachas? You need 100. The reason why Avram Avinu started with 50 is like this. Avram Avinu says, I have a Lamda Shashayla. What's my Lamda Shashayla? The Lamda Shashayla is, there's a Sugya in Chulin, and Psachim, and Machshirin, and Negoim. Mechza. Says Avram, theoretically, if there are 100 servers of Avodah Zarah, but if there are 100 people in the Ir Nidachas, and only 50 of them serve the Avodah Zarah, Ribban Shem, what would you do then? Meaning Avram is trying to pin Hashem down to be Machriya in the Sugya of Negoim, Machshirin, Sanhedrin, what the din is of Mechza. Hashem says, you think I can be Machriya now? What the din of Mechza? I'm not getting involved in the Sugya of Mechza. So Hashem never really committed to that. Hashem didn't tell Avram what would be if Hashem says it's not Negeya. There aren't 50 tzaddik. But what would be, you have to learn the Sugya. I'm not committing myself.
So why was his next question 40? Should have been 49.
Yeah, so it's a little hazy what that part of the Rogotchover. But that's how the Rogotchover learns it. In other words, why is he going there? What's he doing with that? Unless some have... Yeah, I had that question also. Okay. Now let's talk about the cities. Which cities were destroyed? It's apparently some cities were burnt down, and some cities were overturned. There's a Pella Atzuma, Sanhedrin Daf Beis. Actually, the Sugya in Sanhedrin I mentioned before was on Daf Tesvav. How many cities are you allowed to make Ir Nidachas? Like, what happens if all of Klal Yisrael serves Avodah Zarah? So now what? You burn down the whole Eretz Yisrael? Right? The Gemara says in Avodah Zarah that we have a tradition under every single tree and mountaintop they serve idols in Avodah Zarah, in Eretz Yisrael. So now what? Now we're going to burn down the whole country? So as a halacha, you're now to burn down more than 2 cities. And you're now to burn down a city on the border. On the border, we understand, it's going to be unsafe for the Klal Yisrael. But to burn down 3 cities, it's going to make like an empty patch in Eretz Yisrael. We're not going to burn down. Mamela, Avada, all 5 cities deserve to be Ir Nidachas. But the Rebbeinu Shem is capped. There's a cap. The cap is you can't make more than 2 cities Ir Nidachas. So in terms of burning down, it's only Sodom and Vayeira. But in terms of other types of Einshim, the Rebbeinu Shem is able to overturn and be mahapech all the cities. So Sodom v'Amoira, all the cities should have been Ir Nidachas, but Sodom v'Amoira was the Ir Nidachas, and Admot Tzvayim was overturned. And what about Sayara? It's too small. What does that mean? It's too small. There weren't 100 people in the city, says Light. You have to learn the Sugya in Sanhedrin. When Light said the city is too small, he meant it's not halachically big enough to be deemed Ir Nidachas. So take a look at number 14. Vashem himtir al Sodom. Gofris v'al Amoira. Gofris v'esh. So Hashem's burning down Sodom and Amoira. When it comes to the burning down of Sodom and Amoira, it says Vashem. What's Vashem? Hashem and his Bezdin. Because in order to administer punishment to an Ir Nidachas, you need a court. You need the Bezdin Agadol. So it says Vashem. But then when it comes to the overturning of the other cities, which was not the administrating of the din of Ir Nidachas, was just Einesh, it doesn't say Vashem. Because for that, Yutaka don't need Bezdin Agadol, and it doesn't say Vashem over there. Okay, so this is really incredible understanding. That's why in Parshas Nitzavim, Kema Pechas Sodom V'Amoira Admot Tzvayim. Parshas Nitzavim is talking about the overturning of the city. But in Vayeira, when it talks about the 2 cities, it's specifically referring to them as the din of Ir Nidachas. Does anybody remember? Where else in Tanakh do we speak about Sodom and Amoira, but we only mention 2 of the cities? Right, on Shabbos Chazoin in Yeshaya Aleph, Kistoim Hayinu K'Amoira Daminu. Why only Sodom and Amoira? Why not the other cities? So Reb Nachem Kasher writes in his footnotes on the Rogotchover, because the pasuk before says, Arechem Srufais Eish, our cities are burnt down in fire. So therefore we're only going to invoke Sodom and Amoira, because only Sodom and Amoira were burnt in the fire. Admot Tzvayim were not burnt in the fire. Says the Rogotchover, now we understand why the pasuk says Light lived in the walls of the city. Because there's a sugya throughout Shas, in Erechin, in Psachim, in Adorim, in Zvachim, in Chulin, in Shabbos, in 2 places. When it comes to the dinim in Makos, When it comes to the dinim of Batei Arei Chayma, we know if you sell a home in Eretz Yisrael, stay achuzah, you reserve the right to buy it back. Unless it's in a walled city, after a year it's gone. But what if you live in the wall? Are you on the inside or are you on the outside? Is the wall inside or is the wall outside? So Shaila, why were Lot's daughters saved? Okay, so Purim is a good Shaila. Purim, the Gemara Megillah says, we just learned that when it comes to Purim, anything near the city is like in the walled city, right? But if for many halachas, it depends if you live in a walled city or not. So the Rogotchover says like this: why were Lot's daughters saved? Presumably they worshipped idols. Because they lived in the wall of the city. So if they live in the wall of the city, they're considered outside of the city, and therefore they could be saved. But the other two daughters that lived in the middle of the city, they taka perished. That's why the Torah says that Lot lived in the gate. Because if he didn't live in the gate, why would the Malachim try to save those two daughters? The reason is because they're not residents of the city. Now the Rogotchover seems to change this, because the Malachim did say to Lot, grab your other two daughters and get out. Well, how are they allowed to leave? So to that, the Rogotchover says there's another din in the dinim of Irani Dachas, that if you skedaddle from the city before they burn it down, you're safe. So that seems to indicate that anybody could leave the city, even if you are a resident of the city. Okay. It says a Rogotchover. Now I understand. Look at number 18. Hashemesh yatzal haaretz. It was Netzach Chama, and Lot came to Aara. Why does the Torah have to give us a weather report? Says the Rogotchover, it's because the Gemara teaches us in Masechta Sanhedrin that when the Bezdin administers Dinei Nefashos, we know Dinei Nefashos are only from Netzach Chama until Shkia. So since this was Dinei Nefashos, the Torah has to say, V'Hashemesh yatzal haaretz. It's not a weather report, it's a halachic detail that because the sun came up, now the Rebbeinu Shem is able to destroy the city of Sodom. But we know Dinei Mamonos begins already from Alois HaShachar and goes to Tzeis HaKoichavim. Therefore, a few psukim earlier, when it talks about saving the money, it says, Kumai HaShachar Arla. Hafla v'fela. You see in the psukim that when it comes to the saving of the money, it tells you it's Alois HaShachar. When it talks about the destruction or the saving of the city, it tells you it's Netzach Chama. So what's the fate of the city of Sodom? Is Sodom, the residents of Sodom, that wonderful city, one place you don't want to go is the Holiday Inn in Sodom, right? What was the fate of the city of Sodom? Do they have a shiur in Olam Haba? So the Gemara in Sanhedrin, look at number 23, says, Anshe Sodom ein lahem chelek l'olam haba. Shenemar, v'anshe Sodom ra'im v'chatam l'Hashem ma'od, ra'im ba'olam hazeh, avaloim d'medin. They will get up one day and they'll be judged by Tchias HaMesim. It sounds like they have a future. They have a future. Why? I mean, doesn't God want to eradicate them and destroy them and wipe them off the face of the map? So the Rogotchover says, Al pi lamdus and halacha, let's understand the burning down of the city of Sodom. If you burn avodah zarah, you want to eradicate and destroy avodah zarah. But if you destroy an ir anidachas, what's the lamdus of destroying an ir anidachas? So there's a random sugya in Menachos. The Gemara Menachos and Avchavav Beis says, when you make a karban mincha, you take a kmitza, right? You take the fist, and once you burn the kmitza, the shirayim is mutter. So the Gemara asks, right? You understand? You take a fist of the flour and you burn it, and after you burn the kmitza, the shirayim is mutter. Says the Gemara, Itmar koimetz me'ema say matter shirayim ba'achila. When you burn the fist, when does it matter the rest to eat? Says Rabbi Yochanan, when the fire catches on to the majority. Where do we learn this from? Says the Gemara, Amar Kra. V'hinei Allah kitar ha'aretz kitar akivshan. The smoke came out of Sodom, like the smoke of a furnace. And a furnace does not emit smoke until the majority of the city burnt down. So says Rabbi Yochanan, if Sodom emitted smoke, that means the majority burnt down. So just like in Sodom, the majority of it was on fire, so to a carbon mincha, you need the majority of the kmitza to be burning. What in the world is the connection between the city of Sodom burning down and the kmitza of a carbon mincha burning down? Why are we learning out the dinim of the burning of a carbon mincha from the burning down of the city of Sodom? Says the Rogotchover, apparently, Hashem views Sodom as a carbon mincha. And the burning of the kmitza is the burning of the city of Sodom. And the shirayim is light. Says the Rogotchover, I thought Hashem wanted to destroy Sodom, obliterate it, wipe it off the map. Hashem was angry. Hashem wanted to completely eradicate and annihilate. No! Hashem wanted to be mechaper. He wanted to correct. He wanted to be mesakein. He wanted to save those who he could save. The burning of the city of Sodom is analogous to the burning of the kmitza. Therefore, says the Rogotchover, it's interesting. Tosfos, one more thing, number 22, Tosfos says, on the Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Mem Zayin, it says, Tosfos has a kasha, the Gemara says that once somebody is killed, they have a kapara. But the Gemara says, Anshe irani dachas ein lam chelek lo'elam haba. Says Tosfos, not true. That's before they're killed. Once the irani dachas is killed, yesh lahem chelek lo'elam haba. Why yesh lahem chelek lo'elam haba? Because the irani dachas is learned out from Sodom. God didn't want to obliterate Sodom. God just wanted to be mechaper and be mesake in the city of Sodom. The proof is the Gemara Menachos learns out the burning of the kaimetz hamincha from the burning of the city of Sodom. One more thing. Look at number 21. Amar Reb Shimon, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Ematim oisen din be'ir anidachas, Male ani aleichem ki'ilu atem malem oile kol lefanai. If you administer justice to the irani dachas, it's like bringing a carbon oila. Bring a carbon oila is a kapara. That's right. Administering justice to irani dachas, it's not Hashem as a kasan, or Hashem as angry or vicious and he's trying to annihilate. It's a kapara, it's a tikkun for mankind. It's a carbon mincha, it's a carbon oila. Light is the shirayim of the carbon mincha. That's why, in the end of days, it says the people of Sodom will be oimed bedin. And that's why the Navi Yecheskel says that if you go down to the lowest spot on earth, where's the lowest spot on earth? The Yam HaMelach, where Sodom was destroyed. The water is so salty, right? They have not yet discovered even bacteria or a virus that could survive the salty water. There's no living organisms, as far as they know, in the Yam HaMelach. You'll do research, right? What they discovered, if they discovered. But as far as we know, nothing could survive the Yam HaMelach. And the Navi Yecheskel says, Parak Mem Zayin, that in La'asid Lavai, there's going to be a stream of water coming out of the opening of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and it's going to go to the Yam Tiveria, it's going to go to the Yam Samchu, and it's going to go to the Yam HaMelach, and it's going to sweeten the Yam HaMelach. That La'asid Lavai, all the Ahava products, they're going to go out of business. All of that salt stuff is gone. All the mud baths, the Yam HaMelach is going to be sweet water. What is the symbolism of the sweetening of the Yam HaMelach? The symbolism is that the destruction of Sodom was not to annihilate Sodom, was to matter the Shirayim, matter Loit, save David HaMelech, and even these people will be oimed bedin la'asad lavai. It's Vashemu bezdinai. As destructive as it seems, Rebbeinu Shalom is lo yidach meno nidach. The Rebbeinu Shalom is looking to correct and to fix and to be mesake in mankind. And ultimately, even the salty waters of Sodom will be sweetened one day. So this is a little bit of a flavor of how the Rogotchover approaches what seems to us to be purely narrative and purely storyline, how every detail, whether it's the two malachim, whether it's the fact that Hashem converses with Avram and Avram tries to save the city of Sodom, whether it's the fact that only 2 cities were burnt and the other 2 cities were overturned, whether it's that Lot is living in the wall, whether it's the weather reports that Torah gives us, every detail is really halacha l'maisa, and that's really a paradigm to us that we should examine every story in the Chumash with the same perspective. Thank you everyone for coming. Gute Nacht.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.